The United States now finds itself in a far more precarious position than simply facing an enemy with overwhelming military might. The danger lies not in a single adversary, but in the evolving strategic balance between our two primary challengers, Russia and China. Each possesses at least one strategic advantage that allows them to hedge against the other without ever firing a shot. This dynamic is far more dangerous for the United States than a situation in which one adversary holds the dominant position. If one power were to hold overwhelming advantage, the balance of power could still force a conflict where military attrition becomes the mechanism to resolve strategic competition. But when each adversary holds a different form of leverage, conflict between them, the very friction that could preserve U.S. dominance, becomes less likely. In this scenario, the United States' ability to maintain its position as the world's leading superpower, the guarantor of the international reserve currency, and the enforcer of the existing economic order, is increasingly under threat. China's leverage lies in its capacity to disrupt the U.S. economy through control over critical supply chains and the potential to undermine the dollar's role in global trade. Should China reach the point where it can sever or manipulate these flows, it could place the United States on the defensive economically, without a single shot being fired on American soil. Russia, on the other hand, holds a different, yet equally potent, strategic advantage: control over the world's exportable grain supply. The ongoing war in Ukraine is less about Kyiv and far more about the Dnipro River region and the Black Sea ports. These ports are the conduits through which nearly 40% of global grain exports flow, encompassing Russia, Ukraine, Turkey, Romania, Bulgaria, and Georgia. Grain is not merely a commodity, it is a geopolitical lever of immense power. Over the past 2 decades, Russia has surpassed the United States as the world's leading grain exporter, a fact largely overlooked outside strategic circles. China, the world's largest importer of agricultural products, depends heavily on foreign grain. Historically, this made the United States a critical supplier and, in doing so, insulated America from Chinese economic coercion. But if Russia were to secure control of the Black Sea ports and consolidate its position as the primary global grain supplier, China could bypass the United States entirely. The Black Sea's geographic distance from China further strengthens this leverage, as it places Russia's strategic advantage outside the reach of Chinese military intervention. Russia's military strategy in Ukraine reflects this calculation. The Dnipro River remains a natural barrier, forcing Russian forces to consolidate before advancing, a process that exposes them to precision strikes enabled by U.S. long-range missile support to Ukraine. Russia's diversions elsewhere in Ukraine are designed to stretch Ukrainian resources, creating openings to ultimately secure the critical river crossings and ports that will give Moscow control over the global grain supply. The United States' current security rests not solely on military strength, but on the delicate interdependence of these global systems. Should Russia achieve its strategic goals in Ukraine, the United States would face a new world where China no longer relies on American grain and Russia holds a weapon of strategic famine. In such a scenario, our economic and geopolitical primacy could be undermined without a traditional battlefield ever appearing on U.S. territory. In short, the emerging reality is stark. The United States' continued global dominance depends, paradoxically, on conflict or friction between its two greatest rivals. China and Russia, each holding a unique form of strategic advantage, have the ability to sidestep direct confrontation while simultaneously weakening the U.S. position. Understanding this dynamic and acting before the adversaries fully realize their leverage will determine whether America remains at the center of the global order or becomes merely one player in a multipolar system dominated by forces it once considered manageable.